What is happening? AJ Gaming Dude here, and I'm going to be doing like sort of a quick review, sort of like look back at the shows that I watched during the winter 2023 anime season, provide some, sort of quick thoughts and sort of like a quick review of some of these shows and just kind of share my thoughts on them. Crap, I think I might have like repeated it. You know what, I'm going to quit repeating myself and just kind of move on. So first and foremost, we have on our list Digimon Ghost Game. Now this is one that has finally finished after about a year and a half of being on air, I suppose, totaling at about 67 episodes, started in fall of 2021 and has now finally finished as of the end of the winter 2023 anime season, and I am very excited for it to end because at least I don't have to watch it anymore. And yeah, that kind of pretty much sums up my thoughts about the show. It's not great because I was hoping that it was going to be something along the lines of Digimon Adventure. Unfortunately, Digimon Adventure was more so like, it was more interesting because it was character-based stories that kind of bridge across the gaps of each episode, instead of being like the sort of episodic format that Pokemon was back in the day and still kind of is to some extent. Instead, this is significantly more on, well, this is actually on the end of it being sort of episodic Digimon of the week type of thing, and that kind of led it not to be in a great position because I was kind of hoping for something a little bit more, but now looking back at it, that was probably a dumb idea anyways, because it is intended for kids, but then so was Digimon Adventures, and that was, that was a great watch. Rewatched it again recently, and it's still great, so yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Digimon Ghost Game, not particularly fun to watch because it feels like it's really dumbed down over time. The animation isn't great either. Some of the characters have fun interactions every now and again, but overall it just doesn't hold up as well as I kind of hoped it would. So with my sort of what I kind of expected and wanted out of it, that I didn't get and completely shattered to pieces, so I gave Digimon Ghost Game on my anime list a 4 out of 10. I thought it was genuinely just a bad show. I was hoping it was at least going to be okay, but even then, that really didn't quite hit as well as I'd hoped. Moving on from that, next we have is Boku no Hero Academia Season 6, so 6th season of My Hero Academia, and honestly, I was kind of hoping before the season started that we were going to get, sort of a darker, more serious storytelling from My Hero, and we did definitely get that. Unfortunately for the show, because of its art style and the way in which it's presented, it seems to have fallen flat completely because when it does try to tackle something serious or it tries to kind of go in a darker road, it seems to, and I'm going to try and say this without spoilers, at least as much as possible, it feels flat and lifeless in terms of it trying to take itself seriously. Like, let's put it this way, you look at something like Harry Potter, you look at like the later movies, specifically like 5 onwards, like the 5th movie, which was Order of the Phoenix. Moving on from there, like, it gets incredibly dark, main characters die and things happen like that. Unfortunately, like, what My Hero feels like, it's trying to do something as serious as something like the later movies of Harry Potter. Unfortunately, it feels more like what Lego Harry Potter was presented to be. So it feels very much like a Legoland, a faux sense of like, we're trying to do something serious and we're trying to make serious points, but the art style, the credence, the way in which it's presented itself up until now from the beginning of My Hero, especially in the first couple of seasons, it doesn't lend itself well, and so it feels like it's trying to take itself seriously, and I can't seem to, because that's just not what I see in My Hero. If it was serious from the very beginning, I could absolutely understand why and be able to really dig it, but the thing is, that's not what its identity was from the beginning, and it's now trying to shift a very significant way through. You gotta reach some level of finality eventually, but even if it was somewhat goofy, that's still appreciative. And there is some level of goofiness to be had, because yeah, there are times where you're trying to be serious and then try to make things less serious. It just kind of goes all over the place, and unfortunately that doesn't do the show any favors. In saying that, at least the animation is still very much consistent with the previous seasons. Whatever humor is there, the fight scenes are really well done. The the way the main character thinks, it definitely has changed throughout the series, and especially now when he's forced to kind of fight by himself and, save people in order to try and, make heroes look like good people again. The idea of, heroes now being treated as more of the bad thing that we just don't want anymore, even though we've relied upon them for so many years, in a society that was shaped around the ability to have these sort of superhuman abilities. Yeah, all just kind of being turned on its head. While it's it's appreciated that it's being tackled, it doesn't quite hit as well as the previous seasons of My Hero, but at least it doesn't fall flat as much as season 5 did. So at the end of the day, I've given it a 7 out of 10. I think it's good, but it's just not what it used to be, and at the same time, even though parts of it don't feel as serious as it probably should be taken, I'm not going to yuck its yums too much. I still enjoyed whatever I did watch, so I did have some fun out of it. Moving on from that, we have Ijiranaide Nagatoro-san Second Attack, or the second season of Nagatoro-san. And this one was a bit of foreshadowing rather. This show got completely overshadowed by a different show that did romance a lot better than this show did, which I'll be talking about shortly anyways. But essentially, this show, it took 2 seasons to get to where it is. The first season was okay. It was fun to watch. I had fun. We had a good time. We introduced the characters. We kind of have the relationship between each of the characters, and now we kind of have the second season, and it just feels like more of that. Instead of they removed one of the older characters and then replaced it with a younger character who acts exactly like the older counterpart that was removed earlier on. So I feel like nothing has changed and nothing much has shifted except for the relationship between our 2 main characters, and even then it doesn't quite hit as much as it should have, and I feel like nothing much has still changed, even if they view each other slightly differently. We do learn a little bit more about Nagatoro, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's difficult because it's okay, it's fine, it just exists. It has shifted a little bit, but not by much. And yeah, generally in Slice of Life, we don't expect much to shift around as long as it was entertaining, and it was entertaining. But I feel like with it being sort of more in the romance phase rather than being a parody, I feel like you kind of need to move things along at a bit more of a pace. So it's more of a pace killer in terms of how the writing is going. So in the end, I think I gave Nagatoro-san a second season a 6 out of 10. It is okay. It exists. It is fine for what it is. Yeah, I think it's just that it's trying to drag its feet across the ground a little bit too much, and that's starting to weigh on me as the person who's watching. Maybe. But yeah, there's another show later on that I'm going to be talking about that is definitely going to pretty much trounce what Nagatoro is trying to do. So next we have is Oniichan wa Oshimai, or Onnimai. Now, I really like this show. I thought it was really fun. It is really bubbly. It has an interesting premise where we've got the main character who's the sort of, lazy person who just kind of stays at home and does a whole lot of nothing with his life. And he has a younger sister, and the younger sister then is more of the sciencey type who then drugs his food, and then he wakes up one morning only to realize, oh, I am not an older brother anymore. Instead, I am now the younger sister to his sister, essentially. Pretty much a sort of gender bend, but also he gets de-aged quite a bit from what it seems like as well. So now he kind of is more of a middle schooler. And yeah, so getting to grips with the sort of new identity that's now kind of been pushed onto him, despite the fact that he kind of didn't have any choice in the matter, and slowly, changing his mannerisms, getting used to this new body that he has, how it works and functions, the pains that he's gonna have to get through, how to change, how he is from sort of daily the way in which he, does things from a daily to weekly to monthly basis. And so it kind of tackles a lot of different things. And this show has a bunch of really, really good side characters that supporting characters that really add a lot to, the main character and kind of what he does. At the end of the day, the whole idea, what the younger sister was trying to do, well, the sister, I guess, to the main character, is she was trying to rehabilitate him into turning him to a better person, essentially, through changing his gender, making him younger, and then forcing him to just kind of, live life anew almost. And I kind of appreciate that that's kind of like an interesting story to go with. And without going into too much detail, the story can get incredibly serious with certain aspects, and it kind of clowns on Boku Hero, even though it looks far more sort of cuter, more frillier almost in terms of like its bubbly colorfulness and its art style. It does serious scenes and serious aspects far more than Boku Hero, because it kind of states its claim on like it's more based on like how people kind of live in the real world, not a superhuman society, among other things. So at the very least, it kind of hits on certain things a bit better than other shows that we've talked about up until now. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun watching this show. I think it's great, and I do recommend it highly. Unfortunately, I can't recommend it to people who kind of go on the internet and talk about how, argue about genders a lot. If you're not taking things, like, this is a show that is not to be taken seriously whatsoever. Simple as that. So as long as you don't take things too seriously, highly recommend the show. I gave this an 8 out of 10. And one thing that I really, really need to talk about before looking into it any further is I'm kind of in a privileged position where I can sit down, watch the show without subtitles. If there's one thing I'm going to dock the show for, is that the subtitles have been done really poorly by the translator, and that has its own set of drama. I am going to completely, if I were to actually rate the show in relation to the subtitles, I would have given it a 6 out of 10. But the show doesn't deserve to be dragged through the mud like that. The subtitles were done really poorly, like the translations, and there was so much additional content and context that wasn't actually said in the sentence that didn't need to be added because it wasn't there. It's almost like the translator was kind of forcing themselves. So I'm trying to like take into regard, or like regard my ratings with relation to the show, and this is the first time when the translation is actually hurting the show more than helping the show, and so I don't know how to feel about that. So my 8 out of 10 that I'm giving it is purely just for the purposes of not talking about the actual translations. Now, if you were to read the translations, I would not recommend the show at all in that case. But yeah, so if you know Japanese, highly recommend it. If you don't, I would say learn the language. I don't know, it's hard. But yeah, it was definitely something worth talking about. And there's another show that I'll be talking about later on that's going to be definitely a subject of conversation relating to the translations and subtitles. But next we have is Tomo-chan wa Onnanoko, or Tomo-chan is a girl. So this is another show I had a lot of fun with watching, and with relation to Ijiranaide Nagatoro-san, it took 2 seasons for them to get from one place to another. Tomo-chan wa Onnanoko was a great watch. I had a lot of fun, and it handles romance way better than Nagatoro-san, and it had an interesting premise. It has absolutely brilliant side characters that you just can't argue with the relationship that they have. So in short, without spoiling anything and only providing like kind of like the subtext, we have the main character, we have our 2 main characters, the guy and the girl. Now the guy treats the girl like one of the boys, essentially, but the thing is that the girl, Tomo, has actually the guy's called Jun, so we'll kind of go with that. Tomo tells Jun from the beginning of the show, like, kind of confesses feelings, and essentially Jun is just kind of like taking it as like a joke. and then they just kind of like, you know, move on as like sort of best buds and all the rest of it. And so she tries to kind of make him see her as more of a girl. And so what ends up happening is that the Tomo then has like, you know, a couple of friends. In this case, there is Carol, the blonde, and Mizusu, the really serious sort of kudere type. And what essentially happens is that like these two characters, Carol and Mizusu, the fact that they act so opposite to each other but are like the two sort of like best buds in the entire show, even compared to like the, you know, main two characters, their back and forth elevates the show so much, and it handles seriousness so much better than, say, My Hero, in terms of like the serious moments in the show. For someone like, you know, like Carol comes off as like this sort of, you know, ditzy blonde type, always with this persona of smiling and happiness, but the thing is that she is significantly smarter and has far more dimensions to her. Like, she is actually one of the smarter characters, whereas like we have Mizusu, who acts like a smartass but honestly admits later on to just not knowing much about the situation, and also just frantically guessing and coming to terms with her own emotions about, you know, the proceedings between the two main characters. So a great watch, an entertaining one. The side characters, again, Carol, Mizusu, absolutely legendary level side characters. There isn't really much to complain about. There is a bit of, you know, fluff sort of on the sides, but that's to be expected with a slice of life show, and I just had a great time. So this also, alongside Oniichan wa Oshimai, I gave this one an 8 out of 10. Had a lot of fun watching it. Can't recommend it enough. It's a good time. It is a good time. Next we have is Nijiyon Animation. Now this is a side story that was based off of I'm trying to remember which Love Live it is. It's not Love Live All Stars, and it's not Love Live the original. It's like the one they have in between, which is Nijisaki, if I remember right. And so Nijiyon Animation is sort of like a 4-panel manga based off of like a side story, like, you know, side stories based off of Nijisaki. And I'm not too familiar with the Nijisaki part of Love Live, so that's kind of not going to help much. But I think Nijiyon Animation, so I gave this a 5 out of 10. I thought it was entertaining and I had fun watching it. Unfortunately, I don't have much to praise or much to complain about, for the lack of there being something to complain or to like, because it's short. It's very short. 12 episodes of 3 minutes each. You don't really have much content or content or context. So it doesn't really hold itself well to, like, the interactions between the characters are great and all, but sometimes it just feels like meaningless at times, and the themes of the episodes, again, it's meant to be based off of a 4-panel manga, and there doesn't need to be any context to go off of, but I feel like for some reason with these characters, I feel like you kind of need to know who they are, and so maybe it's because of my like lack of background that is kind of not allowing me to enjoy it as much as I could have. But I had fun watching for whatever I had in relation to it. So gave it a 5 out of 10. Not much to talk about, not much to complain about, not much to comment about, because there really isn't much meat on the bones to really be able to pick apart. So that is what it is. Now next we have something that has a tad bit more meat on the bones. We have Inu ni Nattara suki na hito ni Hirowareta, or My Life as Inukai-san's Dog. Now I don't know why they put in I don't know why the English translation is kind of different from, not kind of, it's really different from, like, because if I were to translate the name, it would be like Inu ni Nattara, so if I became a dog, suki na hito, so a person I liked, ni Hirowareta, so taken in by the person that I liked. If I were turned into a dog, being taken by the person that I was, you know, that I like. Because essentially what happens is that so quick plot summary, it's a rainy day. The main character is like in the middle of the rain in a box. We have no further context before this, and then we have one of our main characters, Inukai, the girl in the middle who has the black hair, picks up the dog, and picks up the main character, calls him Bochita, and brings him home, only to realize that after having a bath with the dog for cleaning him because he's like, been out in the rain, and in a cardboard box, the main character sees himself in the mirror and he's like, holy crap, I am a dog. Why am I a dog? How did I turn into a dog? And why is the person that I like taking me in and essentially giving me a bath? And so this falls into the ecchi genre. So do see nips, and I did watch the uncensored version, so that's kind of worth commenting on. Is it a fun watch? Yeah. However, there's not really much consistency in terms of like overarching plot. The main character is just like, I just need to turn back into a human, because he wants to confess his feelings to Inukai, and of course we have a couple of other characters that kind of join in the fray that shown here in the image, in the promotional imagery. And yeah, so there isn't really, it's entertaining and it can be fun, but like the ecchi isn't done particularly well in certain like episodes. In some episodes they're done great, but the thing is like it's kind of hard to like figure out what we're going for here. So there are some incredibly serious moments. Well, not incredibly serious, like the main let's put it this way, they aren't really serious moments. It's just that the main girl, Inukai, doesn't deal with people particularly well, and she has this kind of history with another dog that she had called Pochita, but then when that dog died, she was kind of incredibly depressed, just doesn't like talking to people, and the only way she's actually happy or has like a bubbly personality is towards other dogs like the main character. And so it just kind of goes along with the main character trying to figure out how to turn back into a person, because he doesn't kind of have any memory of it ever happening. Yeah, this one's a difficult one to rate because, again, it's not particularly good, but it's not bad either because, yeah, there's not much of an overarching plot. The girls are really cute, nicely designed, interesting personalities, outfits, and sort of the way they act and behave, I feel like. But yeah, it's difficult to kind of make my opinion on it, because I kind of watched it just with my brain completely turned off, and I had fun with it, but I didn't have as much fun with it as, say, Nijiyon Animation, which I feel like I had more fun watching because there was a lot more sort of like character being thrown out than this show did, even though every episode, it's about 12 episodes, 9 minutes each, compared to the Nijiyon, which was 12 episodes, 3 minutes each. So yeah, I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 10 because take that sound for whatever it's worth. It's a giant air. That's all I've got for it. It's a giant air. And finally we have oh crap, I did not mean to do that. Whoops. And finally we have Urusei Yastura 2022, which is the 2022 remake of the 1980s anime Urusei Yastura, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, the manga is much older than that. I can't remember if it was a 70s manga or an 80s manga, but yeah, because 82 is when the original adaptation happened, and so 2022, 40, holy crap, 40 years later, Jesus Christ. Oh, okay, 40 years later we get a remake, and it is a fun time for anyone who's ever watched an anime in the 90s or in the early 2000s. You will have a fun time watching this show, because it'll make you feel like as if you were brought back to a better time, a better age, where the in between episodes, in the middle of the episode, you'd have like, a short sting with, a short animation, and like, the first and second half of the episodes would feel like, kind of separate pieces to each other, but overall like in a single episode. I can't say enough good things about the show. It does make me feel like as if I'm watching a 90s anime. The art style very much holds up. David Productions did an excellent job with it. It definitely feels like it's got that 90s humor that I feel like is very much lacking. The main character is still an absolute scumbag, a scumbag that we love to laugh at, obviously. Man, what is there to even say? Like, it touches on Urusei Yastura like the original pretty well, honestly. Like, I had a fun time watching the show. And so yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. All things said and done, I gave this a 7 out of 10. I mean, it's a good show. It's a good show. I had a lot of fun. I really liked it. I don't really have much else to say about it. And I'd rather not. There isn't really much of an overarching plot. It's definitely episodic, but but you can feel like there's some sort of like character like change as time goes on between our characters, even though it's kind of more on the end of like sort of rom-com than it is sort of taking things seriously. More so than any of the other romance shows that we've talked about up until now, and I don't really even consider the show to be a romance, honestly. But yeah, I guess with all that said and done, those were the shows that I watched in the winter 2023 anime season, and I'll see you guys next time.